Last couple of videos we've been exploring what we call percentile rank of data within a data set, or just kind of trying to describe a measure of position in terms of where it lies with respect to the rest of the data in the data set. So in my last video specifically, what we had done is we had been given a datum in the data set and said, hey, what percentile is this in? In this video, our goal is going to be this. We are going to find a data value. So we're going to find a data value that corresponds to a given percentile rank. So in other words, we already know the percentile rank that we're interested in finding. We say, well, who's in that percentile? What was in that percentile? So let's say, for instance, here I've got this example left over from my last video, and I say, okay, so a math teacher gives a 20-point exam to 10 students, and these are their scores right here. Okay, so the first thing that I want to kind of point out here is this: when you want to rank data within a data set, the data set has to be put in ascending order first. So this is the first thing we're going to do with this data set. We say, given this data set, it seems that our minimum is 2. It looks like we have a 3, a 5, and a 6, and I can cross these off as I go. So 2, 3, 5, 6. Looks like we have an 8 and a 10. So we say 8, 10, 12 is in here. Okay, so and we say 15, 18, 20. So I'm going to just make sure I have everything here. I always like to recount. So do I have all 10 data? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, so we have all 10. So here's what I'm going to share with you in this video. We say that we have this little formula right here, but basically we say that if you want to find which data value corresponds to a given percentile rank, and I'll just go ahead and foreshadow here a little bit, it says using this previous data set, compute what score would have been in the 60th percentile. We're going to look up here and we're going to say, well, what score is in the 60th percentile using this formula right here? Or what this formula is, it says C equals N times P over 100. It's pretty simple to remember, NP over 100. But I want to point out some pretty obvious things. First of all, we say N. What is N? N represents the total number of data values in a data set. So just like we always use N here, we say that in this particular instance, our N is 10 and we have 10 students. Okay, so 10 students. And then we say P. P now stands for the percentile that you're interested in finding a datum for. So since P is a percentile, I do want to point one thing out about this. We say that I don't want you to get it confused with a percentage, but percentages are usually listed as decimals. When I say 60th percentile, we're actually going to write a whole number 60 here, okay? So we say 60 or the 60th percentile. This is going to allow us to go find the position of this datum in the data set. So now the last thing, and you don't see anything written here for C yet, I do want to tell you, what is C? What the heck does C stand for? So let's go ahead and write this down here. We say C is the position of the datum in the data set. So it is the position of the datum in the set. Okay? And so essentially what I'm saying is, if you look up here, and I'll get this out of the way, okay, we don't want that, we want our pen tool here. So if we look up here, we say, okay, well, this is my x1, this is my x2, this is my third datum here, and fourth and so on. This is all the way out to my x10. What we're saying here is this: we're trying to find C, where C represents the position that datum would be in for this given 60th percentile. So you could say find the data value corresponding to the given percentile rank. I always think of C as like the corresponding spot. It's the corresponding datum that would correspond to that. So we're just going to go ahead and calculate this here, and this isn't a hard thing to do. So we say we need to find x sub C, where we need to find C first. So we say C is N times P over 100. I'll go ahead and drop that in there. And we say our N, in this case, we have 10 data, and we want the 60th percentile. So very, very easily we can calculate this. We say it's really just 600 over 100. And most times you'll get a decimal here. In this case, we get just a plain old whole number. I'm going to write 6.00, but it is a whole number. So what this would mean is, this would mean that the datum corresponding to the 60th percentile is in the 6th spot. Now I want you to think about this. Obviously, that kind of makes sense. You have 10 data, and to be in the 60th percentile, you'd have to be the 6th datum, you would think. The unfortunate thing is, and I have to share this with you here, is that it's not. And the reason why, and sorry to be very technical about this, but is this little note that I give us up here. And there are two if-then statements we need to pay attention to, but the first one is this: if C is a whole number. If the position we calculate, which this is not very common, we just had a data set with 10 data, and so that's why it came out to be this way, but if C is a whole number, it says use the halfway value between the C'th spot and the C plus 1th spot. Okay, so we say, well, what's in the C'th spot? Well, C is 6. So we want the data value that is between the 6th and the 7th spot. And so looking at our data set up here, we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 10 is in the 6th spot, and 12 is in the 7th spot. So what we want to do is we want to say that the datum corresponding to this particular percentile, the 60th percentile, would be the average of 10 and 12. And so we would say, well, 10 plus 12, it's really the midpoint of those two numbers over 2. We get 22 over 2, and obviously you would get 11. So what we can say here is this, to answer this question, we say a score of 11 points corresponds, okay, so there's our C word again, corresponds to the 60th percentile. So just noticing here, by the way, the 60th percentile wasn't even one of the original scores, but we would say if you got 11 with respect to this data set, you would be in the 60th percentile for how we necessarily calculate that. So you'll notice my next if-then statement up here. We say if C is not a whole number, then what you do is you just round up to the next whole number. You just make it the next whole number, the next integer. So again, like maybe we talk about this, we say, well, who's in the 25th percentile? Obviously, the 50th percentile, and I suppose we could say this, the 50th percentile, this is one good thing to admit, percentile, should be the median, because it is bigger than half of the data and smaller than the rest of the data, so it's the median. But if I say the 25th percentile, it's probably this 3 or this 5, it lives in the first half of data, it's about a fourth of the way through. So let's say I want the 25th percentile. 25th percentile. Again, we can calculate this very easily. We would say, well, we have 10 data. We want a percentile to be the 25th percentile, so the position that this would be in would be n times p over 100. Where n is 10 and p is 25. So we end up with this. We get 250 100ths, and again, we get 2.50, 2.5. We cannot say that is the datum in the 2.5th spot because, well, data values are discrete. We say it's either the second datum or the third datum or whatever. But in this particular case, we said if this is 2.5, then what we said we would do according to this if-then statement is you just round it up to the next whole. We say about 3. So we say whatever datum is in the third spot, which by the way, we count up here, we say 1, 2, 3 is 5. So we would say that this right here is the datum that corresponds to being in the 25th percentile. So that is how, if you already know the given percentile that you desire, you can go find that datum within the data set. Cheers.